The second part of Donald Trump's plan is to restore the Gilded Age of the 1700s, where there were basically three classes of people. There were rulers, there were peasants, and there were slaves. And that's one of the reasons he's appealing to the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, where the Supreme Court, again, contrary to precedent, 5-4 decision, allowed him to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people that he despises, whether or not they're innocent or guilty. Now, before tariffs, he already started doing this by gutting the government, by destroying children's education programs, children's lunch programs, and aid to the poor. And now his party, the Republican Party, and the very wealthy people behind all of this are looking to destroy Medicare. Now, the very wealthy people who are behind all of this already did a lot of this Gilded Age. They first started it in the Reagan administration, where they wiped out pensions and instead replaced them with self-managed retirement accounts. So what that did was to take the money that would have been paid for pensions and the salaries that would have been paid to workers, but instead were paid cheaper wages offshore. All of that money went to CEOs and to Wall Street money managers. So that happened before Donald Trump came to power. Since Donald Trump has come to power again, there's been the elimination of children's education, of lunch programs, and of aid to the poor. Tariffs are the next step in executing this plan. And after that, he's going to be going after everything else that people have, which is like Medicaid and Social Security. It's like Amos 2:7 says, "For they pant after the dust of the earth on the head of the poor." The people that are behind Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself want everything that common people have. It's like Jesus talked about the rich fool. When he filled up his bank account, he filled up his grains, he filled up his barns. What did he do? He said, tear them down and build bigger ones. He didn't think about helping the people who had made him rich. He didn't care about bettering society. He didn't care about helping the poor. He didn't care about any of that. He wanted to accumulate more and more and more for himself, because that is the way of this world that is under the rule of God's enemy. So Donald Trump intends to be sort of an anti-Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt, back after World War II, he gave to the people, started programs that helped people come up out of poverty and come up out of the Great Depression, and he intended those programs to be for everyone, even though they were often held back from racial minorities, particularly black people. So Donald Trump is like an anti-Roosevelt who wants to destroy all of those things, and the people behind him is like a class of anti-Roosevelts who want to destroy all of those things and take back everything that ordinary people have. Just like he's behaving as an antichrist now, deporting innocent people without due process, and that includes innocent children in chains on airplanes being deported to foreign countries. That is what an antichrist does. That is not what a Christ-like person does. So how did tariffs help him restore this Gilded Age system, the system of basically kings and peasants? Well, he actually explains that in one of his speeches where he was talking about tariffs and how they were the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. And they were just music to his ears, the most beautiful words that he could ever hear. In that speech, he talked about 1913, where the income tax was implemented. So what the income tax did was that earlier before, the government was financed by tariffs. Tariffs are paid by ordinary people, like you and me. Income tax is mostly paid by the wealthy. So tariffs are paid by ordinary people for the benefit of the wealthy. Income tax changed that and taxed the wealthy for the benefit of everyone, so that some of the money that they got for the people that made them rich in the first place would be more fairly distributed to more people in society, so for the benefit of everyone. And that is how America got a booming middle class. That is how America became the land of opportunity for people to work their way from very little or nothing up to having something substantial. And before that, in those days, especially in the late 1700s, there were no unions, there were no rights for people, there were no civil rights as we know them today. There was only the power of the ruling class. And especially back in 1798, the years that Donald Trump likes to refer to, there was also a satanic cult called chattel slavery that was the false religion of the rich in this country during that time. And that includes rich preachers and theologians who were from those people or who were pandering to those people or both. So these tariffs will again shift the burden of financing the government from the rich through income taxes to the poor, working class, and middle class through tariffs. Whereas the rich will really pay a much smaller percentage, will pay barely anything of their wealth compared to what ordinary working people will have to pay in order to afford these tariffs, which are going to jack up the price of everything. And again, it's not just Donald Trump that wants to restore this system of a ruling class, a peasant class, and a slave class. It's a large number of wealthy and powerful people like the Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, and so forth. And that is why some decades ago, there were people that wanted a judge named Robert Bork to be a Supreme Court judge, and they insisted on what was called the original intent of the Constitution. And the original intent of the Constitution was to create this ruling class. They didn't want to call themselves king, and they didn't have a formal king, but it was the same basic idea. There was a ruling class, not a single king, and they were called landed gentry or landowners. And then there was a peasant class who couldn't vote, and then there were chattel slaves. And nowadays they call that an oligarchy. But Donald Trump's tariffs are geared to replacing income tax to create that system. And Donald Trump's tariffs are part of the plan to recreate that royals and peasants system. And that is in direct contradiction to what Jesus Christ commanded. And what the income tax actually did was to make the government funding more in line with what Jesus commanded, which is, to him whom more is given, much more is required. And that is true in every aspect of life. So with the tariffs, it reverses this principle that Jesus commanded us to do, and instead puts the biggest burden and most responsibility on the people who have the least. So please like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Watch this video for more information about Trump's tariffs, and this video for more Bible information. God bless you. See you there.